In this discussion, we'll be focusing on how international schools engage key stakeholders, including their parents' community, and what effective communication strategies, best practices they have used to date, and the outcomes of these across the key stakeholders of their schools. A key focus of this discussion will also be on sharing actionable and practical tips and strategies that each guest has used at their current and previous schools, with the conversation also touching on where they think the future of school communications is headed. So yeah, delighted to be joined by all of you. Thank you for taking the time. And jumping straight into the first question, why is effective school communications and specifically parental communications so important in a school or international school setting? Who'd like to jump in with that one?
I can go if you like. Do you want to take it in turns, or I'll just tell you what I think?
Go for it, Sharon.
Okay, so for me as a parent, I am a parent of three. I want to be treated with care and attention. I want to have that feeling of warmth and a feeling of belonging and a sense of community. So I think with that in mind, that's what we try to do at our school, is to make sure that those parents and those new families or anybody in the school, retention or recruitment wise, we are looking after their feelings. And so communications is just key to that, is making sure that they're feeling informed, they're feeling part of the community, they're feeling part of the family, and that they trust us. And that, for me and for us at our school, is the most important thing, is trust. And that if we communicate fluidly with our parents, the trust just falls into place. And so that is why my job as such is to make sure that communication flow is good, is effective, is efficient, and has that touch of care and love and family feel that we all want to feel. So that for us is, and why it makes our school so successful as well, is that family feel and that community feel, and making sure everybody's involved.
I would totally agree. I feel exactly the same way. And I think the piece that maybe isn't as obvious for the listeners is the fact that, you know, the international circuit, the amount of transitions that our parents and our families go through, and the fact that they've left loved ones, family in their home country, means that building that family, that community, that instant family is so important in an international school, so that they feel part of the school community, because that essentially is their extended family. Yeah. I'd also say that transparency is also hugely important, and I know that'll come up throughout. You mentioned, Sharon, about building trust and making sure that everything is being communicated, so that you have that transparency, so that they understand where their role in being part of that family is.
Yeah, I agree. So for me, communication and parental communication is an integral part of the brand. The same way that you have your visual guides and your logos, and parental communication is really a part of this. And one thing that you mentioned is that international school is very special in that way, is that it's a tiny community, and your parents are your best ambassadors. And we always say that the most effective marketing strategy is word of mouth, and is what your parents say about you. And how you communicate to them in turn, if they trust you through your communication, they will talk about your school and they will be your best advocates. So effective parental communication for us is completely central. It's really at the center of our overall marketing strategy. It starts with that for us, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, just being the last one to talk, I definitely agree with what everyone has said in this conversation. I believe we're very much aligned with our objectives when it comes to communication. And I think we're all in the same situation. We have this international communities, and they are in a very similar situation where they've left their home countries they feel lonely. And schools are also a place for them to build community, and communication is critical to that part. And of course, whatever is done at school and however our families feel will permeate into our reputation, hence impact um, on our business, on our marketing strategies as well. So at our school, what we do is we've adopted the strategic enrollment management philosophy, and it's definitely also critical, and it's part of the core of what we do and marketing and communications as well.
Excellent. And that sort of nicely moves me on to my second point, actually. And Lisbeth, it would be great to hear a little bit more about that. And my question would be to each of you, what are some of the key strategies and tools that each of you have developed that have worked in your individual school settings, or you found a really great, to be really impactful, to ensure that all stakeholders are communicated with effectively. And there may be some strategies that maybe you tried that maybe didn't have the desired impact that you had, and maybe why that was perhaps. But yeah, it'd be great to hear some of your own stories as to those different strategies. And Lisbeth, I don't know, just you mentioned your previous strategy there that your school has. Do you want to just sort of maybe start with elaborating on that a bit?
Happy to. So strategic enrollment management is a philosophy that oversees the entire process of acquiring, not acquiring, but enrolling, and the experience that families overall have through their time in school and what happens when they leave. And they call it input, throughput, output. And I'm happy to share more of that information with the group, but it's like 5 days. It's like 5 days of training to understand and really get this philosophy. But and simply put in words, it's just 3 steps in which you elaborate what happens through that journey. Input, throughput, output is what happens when it's maybe the marketing part and the community outward facing communications part, and the family's experience in enrollment or during the admissions process. What happens once they're at school, what's their experience like, and once they leave. Also, it's a critical part how people leave the school. We often don't think about how our parents move on or why they move on, but that's also very, very important to this philosophy, and because it permeates into your reputation and the future of your business. In general terms, where we are now, it's very chaotic. And our head of school had mentioned that she has not been at a school where communication was not an issue, because it means different things to different people. If you throw a survey out there and you ask a simple question, please rate our communications, someone might rate it, if it's a scale from 1 to 5, and 1 being the strongly disagree and highly agree. If you ask, do you think our communications are effective? And if you are rated with a 0 or with a 1, that might be that a parent was expecting an email from a teacher and never got it. So it means different things for different people. They might not be talking about our systems. But into strategy, it's a time of transition for our school. And not just transition from into COVID, out of COVID, but also transitioning from heads of school. So we have the whole different administrative core at a high level. And that has brought with it a new vision and, of course, new systems. So we switched and for different reasons, very valid reasons, we switched 3 core platforms of a school. We switch our website to Final Site, which is a very well-known platform that has also an internal portal and is critical to information that is for families who are not yet part of the community. We switched to Veracross, which is also like RenWeb. We switched from RenWeb to Veracross for several reasons. And if you're not using it yet and you're in RedWeb, I highly suggest Veracross. It's a powerful, powerful tool. And lastly, we switched from Canva and another system that I can't remember to Secta. So right now we're in a transition phase where we're developing strategies. So what I did in the past, but did not have time to execute because we went into COVID mode, was that I mapped communications. And what that means is that I know an average how many emails parents are getting, through which media they're getting it. And um, I'm actually in the process of renewing this. So what I need to understand right now to actually generate a new strategy, because that's where we're going, right? Into strategy, is I need to understand where parents are getting the information, where teachers are generating this information, because they've gone through a learning curve. I'm not sure if they're actually using Secta, which is a platform they are supposed to be using, if they're sending regular emails to parents. So first, I seek to understand the overall picture, just renew what has been done, so I can put in place different systems and reach get our leadership to permeate these messages through our teachers, so we have a more unified communication. But yes, it is challenging. I'll say that it's a challenge, but it's a challenge that I love. But it's a learning curve for everyone, because we've just been with Secta one semester, and the expectation is for everyone to receive academic information through the systems. And parents are also learning, so it's not just your staff, but parents learning to log in and wanting to do it. So I think we've had a very low percentage of parents who haven't logged in yet into the systems, but that's also a possibility. So yes, right now the strategy is to understand what people are doing in both ends, both parents and our staff, and generate next steps for that to be successful. I know it sounds a little bit early, but that's where we're at right now.
Fantastic. And I suppose that education piece is so key, isn't it, for parents as well? Yeah, it'd be great to hear some of the other guests. Sharon, what about yourself?
Yeah, I'll go next.
So
one thing that we just need to put out there is that parent communication and communication in general is an area that no one is ever happy. At every school I've been at, if you ask, it's always the area that everyone has something to say about it. It's too much. It's not enough. It's not how I want it. It's not. So just like, to everyone listening, just know that we all share that. It's like, don't worry if you feel like it's a mess in your school. I would say it's the case in every single school. Similar to what Lisbeth said, I would say that one thing that is very helpful, one tip that I would give, is to map out, to really do that exercise, to map out over the course of a couple of months how much communication a parent gets. And keep in mind that a parent might have kids in 3 different sections. They might have a child in early years, in middle school, in high school. And of course, the bigger the school, the worse it gets, because each section thinks thinks in its own silo, so to speak. So parents might get the same communication 3 times from different sections and completely different. So really try to map out and then see where you can cut. So what we did is that we did that exercise, and then we looked, okay, they're getting the same thing. So instead of having everyone sending whatever message they want, let's create one template. And so one thing that we did is that we have a sectional, the principals update, and that is sectional, but goes out once a week at the exact same time for all the sections. And they follow the same template. And we found that it was way easier for parents because they expect it. They know when it's going to come to their inbox. And also they know what it's going to look like. And they know that this is the communication that they can always go back to. So that was one thing that was very useful. Back to something that didn't work at my previous school, the feedback was that the parents were getting too many emails. So we tried to use a portal. So instead of sending everything to their inbox. They could log into the portal anytime they wanted. Like, breaking news, it doesn't work. People say they want that, they just never log in. That was a huge failure. Parents just did not log into a portal, and then the parents were complaining that they were not getting the message. So it just doesn't work. So email is still the best way to communicate to parents, but we need to be very careful on how often we communicate, and if there's a way to kind of like, I would say that in every school you can at least eliminate half of the messages that go out, and it's about being strategic about those messages.
Yeah.
Oh, I think
Cyrielle,
Lisbeth.
I had a question for you. How long, because that's actually what we're doing. So how long did it take you to say it's a failure, it did not work? Or what were the red flags?
So we did it over a year. So the phase one was the survey that was part of a strategic plan. And part of that area that was flagged was parent communication and the too many emails going out. So the phase one was the survey, and okay, it's not working. Phase two was implementing that portal. And then we let it sit for a year with a check-in at 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months. And we use the data of the opening rate of, informal feedback of another survey. And after a year, we pulled the plug, deciding like, it's just not working. The opening rate was something in the lines of 15% or something like this. So, I mean, if you just look at the opening rate after the first month, that would be a good indicator and good red flag. And then, it becomes completely counterintuitive, because then you have to send email reminding people to log into the portal. So then what's the point? So I would say the first red flag. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, because a newsletter usually has a readership rate of about somewhere over 43, 45%.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for us at my current school, switching to that model of like sending the newsletter at the exact same time for all the sections, we jumped from an opening rate between 55 to over 70%, which is like a very good opening rate. We're a school of 1,600, so I would say that's a very good opening rate.
So
yeah,
just
the same happened. Sorry, guys. The same happened to us as well with the newsletters. We try to stick to our promise that we are all creatures of habit, and so on a Friday at 3:00 you're going to get that newsletter or your principal's update on a Monday or whatever, and that works, and our click-through rate as well was also much better. But we found that an app, we worked very hard on a parent app, which was developed from scratch and was our own thing with a company in the UK. And this has helped us. We've got 99% of parents using the app. The open rates are probably not as high as we'd like to, but as you say, everybody communicates in a different way and wants that communication to be delivered in different ways. But this is through notifications and email. So they get the weekly update on a Monday, they get the newsletter on a Friday, and they know that this is a one-stop shop for them to see everything. So they can see curriculum overviews, calendar dates, any information that they need, menus, whatever, is all there on this one-stop shop. So that for us has worked really well, but we are seeing, of course, that everybody wants a completely different system at different times. It's that tailor-making way that we're all working towards, and what the future is, for me, it seems to be that way. But one thing that we have done is just moving away from the platforms and also we have academic platforms. So we have ManageBack or Seesaw. So any academic news is given by the teachers through those platforms. So they know where to find the different pieces of information, homework or whatever. But for us, it was the voice, the parent voice, and having a strong parent association. And they helped us to develop the app. So they helped us with the information they want, and we refer back to them. We have a great executive team with parent association representatives in each grade level, and we talk to them regularly. I mean, I'm with them nearly every day, but we talk to them regularly to ask them, is this working? Is this too much information? What 3 icons would you like to see more of at the top? So it's calendar dates, useful links, contacts, for example. And so we're constantly improving the app so that it is tailor-made for each parent. I mean, it's not a fantastic system, and it could be a lot better. And we're looking at that for a future as a group. As the North Anglia schools, we're looking to develop a whole group app for parents. But it certainly is a useful, hands-on, immediate information at your fingertips, which has helped us a lot. But with the parent association execs, they have been fundamental. They really have been, for me, important. And that's why we keep them involved. We keep them, in the loop about any communication. So we're changing the calendar. So what do you think about these holiday dates? What do you think about this? What do you think about ending term before normal? Or what about parent-teacher conferences? How can we do them better? So we're constantly using them as our references and constantly using their focus groups and them as individual groups to help us in the communication flow. And we actually have like over 95, 96% approval ratings in the satisfaction surveys to say that the amount of information that goes out, general information, is just right. But then it's the teacher-parent communication. That's where, like you were saying, that it's just not 100%, and we can't get all of our teachers to communicate in the same way. Now we have streamlined, and we've done all the mapping and the strategy planning and everything, and we have seen that with the 3 platforms that we have, the teachers regularly post, or we regularly send information through those platforms. But you are still going to get teachers that do not communicate about that magic moment in a child's life or a child's learning process. And that's where our approval ratings go from 60 to 70%. And we're constantly trying. But you have to have so much influence over your teaching staff, and they're very busy people. So that's one of the challenges we face, and I'm sure you all face it as international schools.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to there's so much to talk about there. When Lisbeth was talking about getting trying to get everyone on the same page, especially with the admin, big changes in admin there. You really, it's really important to have the systems background or the systematic thinking, so that you're able to continue the great work that's happened before, to go through those transitions and make sure that you come out of the other side not throwing everything out, but just improving what you're doing and making it better. There's a huge there's that balance between, you want the parents to have the information that they need for their child or their children through the school, but at the same time you want to be celebrating those whole school things as well. And I think that's a huge part, and that's the challenge we were trying to individualize it by having the primary news and the secondary news and things like that. But we were realizing we were forgetting about the whole point of the communication is to celebrate that whole school. International schools are amazing because in general, international schools are right through from ELC to grade 12, right the way through there. And that journey of the child, whatever age they are, whatever whatever students, whatever kids the parents have, to be able to celebrate the early years, to be able to celebrate the senior class and everything in between, through sports, through arts, through news from the school, through the education. It's important that they, appreciate everything that happens in a school. And the challenge is if you individualize it, then you're missing out on that celebration of the whole. So it's a real balance between those 2 pieces. I think one other thing I wanted to say, and you were talking about it, Sharon, about the parent parent input. It's absolutely huge to involve the parents, and we've got what we've ended up doing is we had a newsletter that went out every week, which is what most people are doing, with each section, each division having their own section within it, but it's all been one email with everything in. It used to be a link to read more within each section, but yes, as everyone's pointed out till now, no one clicks on those links. So we've just made it a 20-page newsletter now, a bulletin that goes out each week. It's not 20-page because it's on email, so no one really knows how many pages it is, but it's lengthy. And that's a challenge, but at least it's all there. And those parents who want all of the information get all of the information. The people who just want the summary just reads the director's message at the top and stops scrolling. So but one thing that we've done, which I think has been huge, and it goes to that parent piece, is we've got PTA organized parent liaison WhatsApp groups. And the WhatsApp group is the huge change, because I think sometimes the voice of the school needs to come through a different person or a different
that works really well. It does.
Yeah, and so suddenly the parents who don't necessarily listen to the educators' jargon kind of bulletin, they want that short, sharp, instant WhatsApp message saying, remember that there's this event happening, or how amazing was it that our basketball team did this at the weekend, or those short, sharp pieces that kind of bridge that gap a little bit more.
Actually, Tony, that's part of our strategy in our communications planning, is that we're reinforcing the messages through the WhatsApp chats, even though they're not our official channel. And you have to be very careful with WhatsApp because it can get very complicated, but they are another way of reinforcing the message. So, and it's coming from a different voice. It's coming, hey, come along to the winter market tomorrow. It's those reminders that are, again, immediate, which are really useful.
Max, you put a team of communicators in that group. We're here for the next 3 hours. I hope you know that.
I mean, this is fascinating. I think just getting these little tidbits that you guys are using in your school that have worked, that haven't worked. I think these sort of WhatsApp groups. It's very interesting, isn't it? That it's almost like a filter, isn't it? Immediately, so the parents that don't want to read the 20-page or whatever it is, newsletter, which has all the information in there and can be the source for all the information you need if you have that, if you want to go back and have that time to sit through. It just filters out the key bits, doesn't it, of what they need to know that week or that month. We found a lot of members say similar things, that these WhatsApp groups are just absolutely vital for the majority of parents that are super busy and just want to get the absolute top headline. Yeah.
And another thing as well, the need to know is so important as well. It's the just right, just now kind of piece. And I think that's where, when Lisbeth, I think it was, talking about the portal being a potential success, that's when the newsletters are going out every week and it's so much information, but then it comes to that moment in time where the parent realizes, I should have read it all, I didn't. Where can I go to get that information? So having that portal for that information that you can go back to over and over again, it's there, you can get it when you need it. How do you contact communications, or how do I enroll another student, or what events are happening when, and where's the calendar? Those kind of pieces where you're constantly in the newsletter talking about all these things, but it's redirecting them to a place that they can go to, where whether it's the app, whether it's the portal, that they can go back to and get it when they realize that they actually did need it all along.
Yeah. Great. And what would you say some of the biggest mistakes that schools could make with regards to sort of communication strategies? Perhaps that you've come across, that you've heard about, some sort of things that schools could potentially overlook.
So I think one thing is making sure we, in my previous school, we went to an external marketing company, communications marketing company, that wasn't in the same country that we were in. Very close, same region, but and they came to visit, but they really didn't know how things were done. And things became very generic, very stock image based and things like that. And it just took the heart away from our school. And even though they were an amazing company on paper, the voice has to come from the school, and has to come from people within the school. I think it was actually worse than having nothing, having someone do it that wasn't the voice of the school and the feel of the school. And it became very impersonal, extremely professional, but extremely impersonal. And I think that balance there, the parents just saw through it straight away. And as we've said before, the international community is vast, but it's so small when you do something that you shouldn't have done. And so that was a big mistake that we made that was rectified. So yeah, it's all about the personal touch and the family approach.
Yeah. It's that authenticity, isn't it? The trust, like we said before, that you have to be authentic. It can't be an external. You have to be the people on the ground, the people in, being in front of the parents, the students, the staff. It has to come from the heart, from those people there. But yeah, marketing companies are different in that way. Our biggest mistake has been in the past people. So if your principal or your heads of school are not communicative and don't want to communicate, or don't feel that parents are part of the community and part of the decision processes at school, then that's hard. That's really hard. And it really, really disrupts the whole plan of communications, and how people feel about you, and your reputation starts to dwindle. And I've seen it. I've been there a few years ago, and it didn't last long, thank goodness. But it is a very important aspect that your principal has to be that PR man or girl. They have to be a public figure that is transparent, that has an open door policy all the time. You come and see me if you're concerned about anything. The heads of school, the grade level leaders, all of those people need to be people.
Yep, absolutely. I couldn't, yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's not, it's not necessarily what you say that is important, is how you say it. And it goes back to that authenticity. Your school, you need to decide your voice, your tone. You need to decide the kind of school you want to be. And it goes back to having at the strategic level, define the kind of school that you are. Are you the super academic excellent school? Are you the family feel school, very inclusive school? And then once you decide that, you need to get this buy-in from all the stakeholders in your school, that the communication needs to say that at every step of the way. And if you decide that you are a very family-oriented school, you need to your communication to be a celebration of everything, that even the smallest victories for each student need to be celebrated. And that's a big mistake that schools do, is that there's so many stakeholders and so many different people that communicate, that sometimes it can look very inconsistent. And I really do think that there needs to be a training or a clear understanding from everyone in the staff of, this is who we are, this is our school, and this is how we communicate. Maybe it is a communication policy. Maybe it is a ghostwriter, if you can have that in your staff. Maybe it is a sheet that says, okay, this is the kind of things that we say. Or maybe it's built into the culture of your school. It's just how everyone communicates, because this is because that's the kind of staff that you have and that you hire, and that those are the people that are going to relay that message. Consistency and authenticity. I say that's, if you don't have that, that's a big mistake in your school communication.
Yeah, we train our staff actually at the beginning of each year with an Engage as One strategy, where we talk about communications and how, the communication flow should be seamless, should be warm, empathetic, caring, continuing on our reputation, is for years to come, hopefully. And we've been bought out twice by big companies. And keeping that personality and that character within your school does help if you've got the right people in place. It doesn't help if there's somebody comes in and becomes very corporate and decides to do it all in a cookie cutter way. You lose your personality. You lose that warmth that you've grown so many years, or you've been doing for so many years to grow and grow, and that's difficult too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry, Lisbeth, I haven't let you speak.
Lisbeth, anything you'd like to add there?
I'm just listening to everyone, and you have such wonderful insights. And I've heard some stories and places that we've already been there, and I've heard some insightful things that I would love to do, like take more advantage of our PTA. Like I'm just thinking about how right now I'm just a little bit distracted thinking about how I am going to gather information from them. But overall, I just agree, and I understand where a lot of you are coming from, and I'm just glad that some of the best practices we already have in place at school. Our head of school is a very experienced lady. I respect her very much. She's doing an amazing job. The first thing she did was get us aligned on our definition of learning and our school mission.
And just this week, I was interviewing a couple of students, and we talked about doing something with our values, and they couldn't remember them right off the top of their heads. And what they did was that they looked around, and I thought, oh, this actually worked.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I mean, I think we've all been through very, very similar thing. And I'm also glad that we have an open door policy. That's very, very important. It's critical. And if it doesn't exist at your school, fight for it, because it really does help smooth things out. We've gone from being a really open school. I don't know what it looks like in your countries, but at ISP before the pandemic, parents would wander freely on our campus, completely free. And some of them would, I don't know, walk into classrooms. Apparently I wasn't there to see it. But now they can't go to campus without notifying. And that's been a huge hit on the school. And it's been great that our head of school has her doors open to openly have these conversations about security with parents. It's a 9-hectare campus. It's a big place. And our stakeholders are children, and they're our priority. Keeping them safe is our priority. And we just can't have anyone just walking into school and wandering around on our campus.
Yeah. Great. Any final thoughts there before we move on to the next question? So that will move me on to, looking at the different tools and strategies that each of you used, in your varied locations as well, Panama, Korea, Africa, Mozambique, Spain, and Madrid. How do these different, communication strategies maybe depend on the region, or is there a common thread globally? Any sort of similarities or any particular differences depending on where you've worked region-wise?
Well, the similarity everywhere, I would say, would be the children are parents want to hear about the children. They want to hear that the children are safe, cared for, happy, and succeeding. So I would say that's about like the common thing everywhere. Outside of that, I do think that there are regional differences. People want to be communicated to differently depending on where they are. The channels might be different. The way what your emphasis is might be different. The frequency might be different. I mean, I've worked in Asia for a long time. I've worked in Europe, and it looks completely different. Europe likes the very instant messaging, like the very informal WhatsApp texting call thing. And I found that in Asia, in both China and Korea, they they like this instant, China is WeChat and Korea is Kakao, but important communication has to be by email, and it's very regional. I mean, I don't know what you guys think, but that's absolutely.
I mean, I'm not sure if it as a region and if it depends on the region, but I think we have 72 nationalities in our school, and I feel that they come from all over the world, and they will all want different ways of communicating. It's so true.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we have to stick to our plans and what works and everything else. But what really does matter is the tone of communication. So there's a really good book, by the way. I'm not trying to sell it or anything. It's nothing to do with me. Culture Map. And it's, I don't know who, I can't remember the author, but I'll find out for you. And it's about decoding how cultural differences impact international schools and businesses. And it's really interesting. I really recommend it. And it's making sure you don't offend, or you make sure that, so you don't just celebrate Christmas, you celebrate Hanukkah, you celebrate New Year. All of those cultural differences that we need to take into account when we communicate. That's something that's really important for us as a school, that we don't miss anybody out. So, sometimes we just don't mention the word Christmas at Christmas. It's a winter market or a festive season, or, it's that sort of thing that we need to be very careful about, and offending people, from different cultures. That to me is important.
Yeah, I don't think what is communicated changes across the world. Like I was in the Philippines, Dubai, and now Southern Africa. I don't think what you communicate changes necessarily, but how it's communicated and the platforms is the thing that maybe changes. And that's where you need the input from the parent community to find out what works best over time. And yeah, it's not always the same. You've got to find out how to get that voice across through, whether it's Instagram or whether it's to your students, or whether it's Facebook to your parents, or whether it's email for the official stuff. You've got to find out what works for you in that place at that time, and understand that that's going to change very quickly, depending on what happens. I think COVID changed a lot of how we communicate and how things happened, but also, as people have said already, changes in management and leadership also change how we communicate, but not necessarily what we communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. Lisbeth, any final thoughts your end before we move on to the last question?
Well, unfortunately, I have only worked in Panama, so I can't say anything about the different platforms or the differences when it comes to culture. Sorry.
No problem. I think the theme there, though, is definitely the local community, and listening to what the parents want from that school, the students, how they want to be communicated to. That might be different too. So I think, yeah, like Tony, like you said, it's that personalized touch is absolutely vital wherever you are in the world. That's the common thread, isn't it? And you've got to use the tools that work for that local community, and then you'll be golden.
I mean, about that, like Sharon said, we are all international schools, so we have like many different nationalities, and you cannot please everybody. There's no way that you can communicate to a way that is satisfactory to every single person, depending on their culture. So it really has to come from your school culture. This is what you define as being how your school. I think one of the mistakes some schools make is that they try to cater to everybody, and by doing so, by trying to be so mindful of not hurting, anybody's feelings and cultural differences, you kind of lose your identity as a school. So as long as it's communicated that this is who you are and this is what kind of school that you are, parents choose to come to your school for that too, regardless of their culture of origin or their home country. So you can't cater to everyone. It's just impossible. But in the local context, generally. You don't need to be from that culture to move to a country and suddenly adopt, like I had never heard of cacao chat before. And the second I moved to Korea, like cacao is all I know, So, I mean, even if you're an international family, when you move to that local context, you just naturally adopt that way of communicating as well.
Yeah. The other point is celebrating your host country and making the most of that. So the culture, the things around you, is just making the most of what you have around you, making sure that is embedded as well in the culture and the social and the learning of each family that attends the school. So we really play on that quite a lot, that Spain and the Spanish language and Spanish traditions and are very important aspects to school life.
Wonderful. Sorry, Lisbeth. Yeah, okay.
No worries. I just wanted to say that in regards of what Cyrielle was talking about on being who we are, and it might drive some people away, but it will definitely attract mission-aligned families, which is something that we work really hard into getting and moving out of rolling at missions. And that's why if it's not a thing at your school, I highly recommend it. That everyone, we did the work for everyone to know by heart our mission and who we are.
Knowing who you are and standing it is critical to your school culture and to the future of your business as well.
Brilliant. Audio's a little bit poor there, Lisbeth, but yeah, we just got that. That's great. Thank you. And so final question, just from each of you, it'd be really interesting to hear your thoughts on just where the future you think of parental communications or, school communications more broadly is sort of headed into the future with the different trends that we've discussed. Be great to get each of your thoughts just quickly on that as a final thought. Who'd like to go first?
I'll go.
Sharon, yeah, do you want to?
I just tailor making is just so important, and everybody now, it's just so immediate, information overload, and information is everywhere, and we all have it at our fingertips. And that's where it's going. It's moving in that direction. So I just feel that if we don't get that and we don't move with that the times, and we don't make sure that everybody is, and we're tailor making our communications to suit our parents and our students and our staff, then we're missing out a little bit. And we're keeping up with all of the platforms and all of the ways of which we can communicate, then we need to do that. It's even talk about TikTok being the next channel for school promotion. I'm still waiting to see how that's going to work. But anyway, but yeah, it's just moving with the times and making sure that it's immediate, and that we're tailor making our communications to suit each individual parent.
I'd say I agree. But having that balance, I think balance is really important. The balance between tailor making it and personalizing it and individualizing it, but also celebrating the whole community. And then I think what a massive thing that needs to happen in many schools is the streamlining as well, making sure that you've got that vision, how you're going to do it, and streamline. So yes, we're celebrating all of the different ways it could be potentially pushed out, but what works for the parent and student community within your school? What's the best way that you can get to most people most of the time, and streamline it to that? Because I think one of the biggest complaints of all parents, and I'm a parent of two, one in middle school and one in high school, but it's the if you've got too many systems and too many different places to look, it just gets extremely confusing. So if we can streamline, take good practice and make it work for your school, for your community, then that's the best way. But I don't know what the answers are. That's just
Yeah, I would say that who knows what the future is of communication. I would just say be careful to not jump on the latest trend and fad and please stay away from TikTok. It has no business in school communication. Leave TikTok.
Has anyone used TikTok usefully for school comms? Interestingly,
not yet, but some of our sister schools are starting to use it.
Wow,
and I'm intrigued, but we'll see.
I've said, and that's a hill I'm willing to die on. Like, over my dead body, will we use TikTok as an official channel? Yeah. You know, we've seen so many of those trends, and they come and go. And school, it remains a place of education. And you know, we don't, as communicators, we just need to make sure that the information goes to the families in a timely and efficient manner. Social media is just one part of it, and social media is more a celebratory kind of thing and a promotional tool rather than a communication tool. So I don't think, you know, rather it's going to be an app or a portal or emails. Traditional communication in the 21st century will remain, I believe, for parent communication and families communication.
Yeah, I was thinking of it more, Cyrielle, as the WhatsApp, for example. We didn't have WhatsApp a few years ago, so you know, you were thinking about future. I don't know. It could be a hologram of a teacher, or it could be
exactly.
Who knows?
Who knows?
What happen? You know, or us as communicators are constantly connected 24 hours a day on WhatsApp or hologram messaging. Who knows? But yeah, things do change.
Brilliant, Lisbeth. What about yourself?
I literally work very near to the jungle. And I drove by it when you asked the question, but I'm guessing we're talking about the future of communications.
Yeah. What was that? What did you drive by?
Lots of heavy trees and
the
rainforest. That's what I did.
Rainforest. Okay.
There's a little bit of signal there.
Yeah.
But in terms, just following on what Sharon and what Cyrielle are talking about, I think the future is that we get closer to personalizing somewhat the communication and doing our best to target that communication towards parents who need it. And right now I am switching platforms. I only use social media for marketing purposes. That's the only reason why I use it.
Yeah,
and only intent it has at school. And what we're switching to is I've come across, it's also in the UK, it's based in the UK, called Verigami. It's got artificial intelligence and it's compliant with GDPR, and it also merges with Veracross, which is our CRM. And that will allow us, it has artificial intelligence. I guess in a year or two, we'll be able to read all of our students' faces, and it has this internal platform where parents can securely celebrate our children. Right now, our teachers are afraid of taking photos at school. In Panama, we went from, this is our school, this is our campus, look at all those little children, from, you can't take photos here unless they know. So they've been, I think it always happens with a transition like this, when it's security, that teachers were very freely taking pictures and videos, and now they're
on
like
the phone and
have less photos of students or only their backs. But we're working on it. So I think the future of communications at school, thinking of all those limits for security purposes, which are there for very good reason, would be systems like this. Having the tools and the systems in place to cater to our parents and to give them what they want, when they want it, where they want it, in a safe environment.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Any final thoughts from anyone before we
I don't think there's a magic wand, honestly, Max.
Yeah. No,
we all feel that, you know.
It's been fascinating, and it's an ever-evolving thing, isn't it? Especially as technology evolves, as communications evolve. It's such a fast, rapidly moving environment. So I suppose it's just adapting and choosing the best things at the right time, testing them, iterating, moving on. Sharon, like you said, talking really in depth with your parents when you're developing these tools is so vital, and that's such an interesting piece that you guys are doing. But yeah, thank you so much everyone for sharing their insights, and who knows, maybe we'll be all in the metaverse, or talking with holograms in the next 10 years, and we can do this in person.
Yes.
But yeah, excellent. Thank you so much all. It's been fascinating, and maybe look forward to maybe a part 2 session sometime early next year. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.